Jorge Canavati to start us off with a update to our meeting that we had with the Laredo and the Corpus Christi chambers to talk about a possible regional initiative.
All right. Do you want me to talk about that and other stuff, Chris? Or
Yes, sir.
Right now, as I start?
Yes, please.
Okay. All right. So Chris and I had a meeting with the executive director of the Laredo Chamber of Commerce and the executive director of the United Chamber of Commerce from Corpus Christi. We are beginning to have very initial discussions, and it's frustrating because of the COVID situation we're in. Initial discussions to begin a regional, a regional objective or objectives and a regional alliance, if I may, on what is South Texas. Three important communities: San Antonio, Corpus, and Laredo. And I mean, what we're trying not to do, and we have to think about this, Chris. This is not the forum. I don't know. Do we want to have other communities involved? It's going to turn into some sort of economic development Godzilla. But if we have three leaders in the region, Corpus because of the energy business, and Laredo, of course, because of the North America agreement, and the largest port in the Americas right now, it's very important. San Antonio is involved in both of these sectors, and the three chambers can represent the whole region very well, not only in the region geographically, but internationally or globally in that matter. So it was a good meeting, where I spoke to Miguel Conchas again from the Laredo Chamber, and he's very enthused about doing something. We're just very frustrated right now because we have to wait for this COVID thing to go forward or to end. With that said, it is very appropriate to mention that there was a huge event in the USMCA, aside from the signing last month, there was a huge event that happened 4 days ago, and no one was aware of it. And it's one of the most important events of the year, that by presidential decree, they approved a new rail bridge in Laredo with the Kansas City Southern Railroad. After dozens upon dozens of years, this is the first time this has ever happened. Infrastructure projects of that sort have to be approved directly by the president, by presidential decree. And it usually takes years. And in this case, it took 6 months to get this approved. A second rail bridge in Laredo, which is a real USMCA accomplishment. That's going to help a lot on the trade itself. It's going to help a lot on the automotive part of the trade that San Antonio has with Mexico, with the Union Pacific. So that's going to be really, really important. I posted some things about it in Facebook, but not many people wrote about it. So that's going to be very important for us as well. The Tesla plant coming to Austin is going to have a very important economic development impact in San Antonio as well, being because of the automotive sector that we have here, workforce supply, and high-tech items and issues. So that is another area of, an area of regional economic development. Some people got upset. You don't have to necessarily have an automotive plant in San Antonio proper to be successful. You can have it anywhere in our region. We've spoken about this a lot. I've written written some essays about it. So the Tesla plant is going to bring some very positive economic news to San Antonio as well. I just got off a conference with the Secretary of State, the Consul General of Canada, the Consul General of Mexico, and the Executive Director of the Port of Corpus Christi, one of my clients, on precisely talking about the coastal bend and how important it is to the USMCA, Texas, and Canada trade. Of course, you have three government officials taking the lead. So this was very 30,000 foot, everyone patting themselves on the back, very official stance type of thing, all very positive. But the point is that there is an important connection between Canada, the coastal bend, our region, and Mexico. And I'll send a little note on that so I don't go into a lot of details. A lot of San Antonio companies, such as Valero, amongst others, have interests, infrastructure at the Port of Corpus Christi that have Canada involvement and have deep Mexico involvement. San Antonio's number one fuel export market is Canada. Number two is Mexico. That's why I was telling Trish and I were talking the other day how blessed we are where we are, because we have pipeline, we have good rail, we have good seaport, and we have trucking, very good trucking as well, right here in our area. Seaport, Corpus being focused on 100% energy related. San Antonio's container port is two, is Houston and Los Angeles, Long Beach through intermodalism with the Union Pacific Railroad. So we had a very good meeting this morning. We're still getting very, I guess, worrisome earthquakes from the White House, in the sense that we just signed the USMCA and they just slapped tariffs yesterday on Canada aluminum. And this Canada's furious. Now they're gonna respond to this, and we continue on with trade wars. We continue on with this issue that is causing a lot of problems to the U.S. consumer and to the U.S. Retail industries. It's a very big problem. Out of the blue, they just decided to hit Canada with tariffs. There was no, under the new agreement, there's a certain ruling that you have to go to hearings and so on. But no, this was just nonchalant doing this type of problem. This is a big problem with this administration. Yesterday, candidate Biden said, or almost candidate Biden said, that he's going to take down some of the China tariffs, or most of the China tariffs, which is basically, there are two ways of looking at this. I understand he doesn't want the trade war, and this is important. And taking down the tariffs from Chinese goods is a benefit to U.S. the economy. There's no question about it. Of course, the Trump camp said, he's bowing down to China, etc. Not the case. We're going to deal with China, of course, but in other areas, not with this, because this is causing a lot of problems to the U.S. economy, the consumer, and to the retail industry. So that is a new thing that's happening right now. So I guess, what else do I have? I think that's it. That's it for now. Chris?
All right. Well, thank you so much. Yeah, that was great. Thank you. And I'm going to now switch over. Hello, everybody. I see Nadia. I see Lily coming on.
Hey, good afternoon.
Quentin, Dominique, Luana. So at this time, I'm going to ask Peter to give us a short presentation. We're going to go around the room, so I'm going to give everyone a chance to say some words about what you're doing and so forth. So Peter.
Thank you, Chris. So good afternoon, everyone. I hope that everyone is well. Before I get into nuts and bolts of things, I just wanted to say a few words about general well-being. This entire crisis, this entire COVID situation has affected a lot of people, and I tend to be one of those people that focuses on problems and hopefully prospective solutions to them. I wanted to just say kind of a few words about general well-being. Spend some time with your pets. Creatures that can relax, without worrying about all the pressures of the world. Don't watch too much news. Connect with your family through distance, through mediums like this, family, friends, if you can. This is, the general well-being of people during this crisis is very important. I always hear somebody speak to it, and it speaks to me, and so I wanted to say a few words about it before I jump into nuts and bolts. So a few things, we've been busy on several fronts. Obviously on the day-to-day, I'm still working with firms across the country, minority-owned businesses, helping them access international markets, expand into international markets, and adapt to the current environment. The international side, so when this thing first hit, one of the general trends that I saw at the high level is international suddenly doesn't matter. It's all about domestic, and in many ways there was some importance to that, because obviously we saw that this was coming. There were plans for the lockdown, and the movements that happened to try to address things like liquidity issues through the CARE Act, EIDL, PPP. Those were all things that needed to happen. But I definitely saw that, you know, trade took a very secondary concern at high levels, other than things that were already moving. I have recently been looking at some data that might tell a very different story, and I haven't heard anybody. I haven't heard any conversations that had positive reflections on trade or on international relations. This thing spread along supply chain lines. You know, it hit kind of New York and Detroit first, largely because of business travelers. Nobody heard about Detroit because they actually did something right. And I sent emails to the contacts in the city that I have look at Detroit, because they did something right very early in March. But I've recently done some research on the real picture of trade with respect to American exports, and so I want to share that with you. I'm going to start with just to give some context. Does everyone see this graph? So this is from a Goldman Sachs study that starts from February and ends at the last week of June. And this is essentially, this is using a composite. This is essentially what we've seen in the economy. We've seen, given a composite of industries, we've seen it go from 100% to about 36% capacity. So, 64% decline at the bottom here. And then I see all of you here at the very end. This isn't new news, but in June when we started to open up, we did see a resumption of activity. Let me just move some things around here so that I can navigate this quickly. This may be a little bit difficult to look at. I can zoom in if needed, but these are basically the areas that have been booming during the period. As you can see, they've had growth rates, some of them 798% for Instacart. That may be a small industry, but several of these have grown at very large ticks. Zoom grew by over 3,000%. Which we're using currently. So the major sectors: e-commerce, grocery, online media, news, TV, online gaming, food delivery, at-home fitness, video chat apps, online payment apps. These have been the areas that have been growing, and in this chart you kind of see the extent to which these are the areas that have been suffering. We have gym attendance, commuting, box office, sports TV, dining, retail and recreation, airlines, lodging, online travel, live events, card payments. You can see in some of these cases, and I'll zoom in here just a little bit, we have cases where things have been dropped as much as 100%. The good cases here are dropping at around 50%. Most of them are averaging around 70%. Obviously, some of these sectors, such as retail and dining, employ tremendous amounts of people. Service sector has been hit by this more than virtually any other industry. Going into the June, we're seeing that a lot of these numbers look a lot better. We're seeing the low ends be down around 50, 60%, some of them recovering to about 30% down. This is year-over-year numbers, by the way, so this is compared to the same month of the previous year. Some of them down as little as 19%, some of them even growing. I believe this one here is Starbucks, where Starbucks had declined by 50% in the first few months, or in the first month or two, and then in June it had arisen. So we do see declines across the board. Again, I will go back to this chart here because this is a bit of a summary of what we saw in the economy. From 100% activity, this is a composite of industries, down to about 36%, 64% decline, up to about 60%, 40% decline at the end of the previous month, end of June. Now, what I want to share now is some—
Peter.
Yes.
Yeah, so going to the far left of the, what month is that over to the far left where there was 100%? Is that back in What is that, December?
This starts February 3rd.
Okay.
So this is basically just before the lockdown up through June, which, you know, that's just the extent of this data. And I use this because this data corresponds with the data that I have been researching that I'm about to show you. Any more questions on this data? Because I know that this is a lot of very, very useful economic data, and I'll be happy to share it. This shows a pretty good snapshot of what happened in the economy during this period.
So you would also say that these are some interesting stocks to potentially invest in, considering that the trends for where we are is probably still going to be supporting some of these major industries.
So trend advice and stock advice is always difficult, because when you look at stocks, the idea there is that this data has likely been priced in. You know, we're talking about speculation for tomorrow. So historical data is definitely useful. I try not to give stock advice because things can change, but these are clearly the areas where we're seeing growth.
Okay, thank you.
And this, now, do you guys see this Excel sheet? Is it up here? Or do you
No, we
still
only see the graph still.
Okay, let me, do you see it now?
Yes.
Okay, so this is some data that I've done. This is directly from UN Comstat, which is basically it's the United Nations centralization of trade flows by harmonized tariff schedule. Those are some technical terms, but basically this is the most up-to-date. You can get this exact same stuff from the US Census. This is pretty much the most up-to-date data on what has happened on a monthly basis in US exports going all around the world.
Wow.
So I'm going to go to the graphs, not the data, because that's you know, that can get a little bit convoluted. But this graph here, let me just zoom in on it a little bit. I'm going to move this. So this is monthly total exports. This is last 3 years data, 3.5. So, you know, you can see 2017, 2018 is the yellow line, 2019 is the, 2018 is the orange line, 2019 the gray. This is this year to date. So this is through May. I actually checked this morning to see if June numbers were out. And they're not as of today, but they may be out soon. So this is a bit of a decline. However, I wanted to show you, this graph starts from 80 billion. And this graph starts from 0. So when you compare to the previous graph, where we saw activity within the domestic economy decline by over 60%, we can see here that in trade, there is considerable amount more resiliency. It declined by half as much in absolute terms. It declined by about, I actually have the percentages on this next graph. So another analysis that I did here was one of seasonality. This is the seasonality of US trade the last 3 years. 2017 through 2019. So this is month over month, basically how the graph moves away from the mean. So compared to an average month, March is typically up 5%, April is typically down 8%. Given the last 3 years data, obviously you can look further for a more robust picture, but the last 3-4 years were significant because of policy changes from 2016 on, really. So here I just did some seasonal adjustment, and it looks like the picture is a little bit more robust. So this is in absolute terms. For the month of April, trade, this is flow of goods and services, was down just over 30%. Again, this is compared to 64% in the general economy, and down 32% the following month, another small decrease. But if you adjust for seasonality, it was only down 22% and 28% respectively. So there is a story here that's not being told about the resilience of international trade. Now, this is just the data. We can get into analysis as to you know, why this is the case. You can talk about things like contract. Trade tends to be a different layer of economic activity. It's obviously not the same as retail. There's contracts involved. There's commodities involved. But this does show a level of resilience, and it's kind of contrary to the initial assumptions regarding trade, which typically I find that the assumptions regarding trade are very different from the actual actual data. Another thing is with the actual spread of COVID, this is the business people that are flying to New York and Detroit making deals, and that's the means through which it's spreading. Contracts are still executed. Ports are still open, although the main issue that we've seen is spotty customs service in a lot of developing countries. It closes down at times. Sometimes it's only open for certain periods of the day. So there's throughput issues. But still, given the magnitude of what the world is facing, this is a very positive picture for trade. And this is all, again, this is U.S. exports to the world. There's also a regional issue. Latin America is suffering from this much more than other countries. It seems like Asia, and to a lesser extent Europe, and to a lesser extent the Middle East, are the ones that are closer to opening up and resuming normal activity. So in a few months, I'll give you some data on what happens from here. I'll leave it at that. I can go ahead. I'll leave some room for questions.
Yeah.
Chris, where are the imports?
I didn't analyze that data in this study. I can get that data as well. It's a different source, and there may be a different story on the imports. I want to be very clear on what this is. This is U.S. exports to the world, and this is all.
We need to consider. And that's 50% of trade. All right, it's very important that we underline that if we're just looking at exports right now.
Probably much less than 50% actually, because
what I'm saying is, if we're just looking at exports, it's only half the picture. We use the word trade, so we need to, at a later date, you may want to have just the export graph as a whole and the import graph as a whole.
I agree. And a lot of this data was simply, my focus is helping U.S. companies export. So this analysis was just in line with where my role is focused.
And that's very, very critical and important, but we just got to see, because we're talking trade, so I'm trying to look for the imports. If we're talking exports, we just say just exports.
Yes.
See what I'm saying? My point?
Yes, it is only part of the picture. And my assumption is going to be, and we can look at the data. My assumption is that imports were probably affected.
Of course they dived. I mean, with the tariff issue, of course they dived as well. But I mean, when we use the word trade, I just like to see not only 50%, but the whole picture.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with your point. And the reason I have this data is simply because it's in line within the role that I. Of course,
excellent work, beautiful work.
Thank you. Otherwise, I'll just kind of mention very briefly on a few other things that I've been focused on. I'll try to stop sharing here.
Does anyone else have any questions?
Any other questions on
regarding those slides before Peter moves on? Because I thought that the information was very informative in terms of export. I also thought it was informative, and I really couldn't see. But you did give us a link in the comments area, so that we can actually see this full presentation. Or what did you give us in the link, Peter?
So actually the link is just the webinar. This is work in progress. I haven't even written anything up. I've literally this is work I was doing over the last week. So I just wanted to show you guys the work in progress because I had graphs, and graphs can communicate the information.
Don't work.
And
so it's work in progress. I'll be doing a write-up of this and going from there in the next week or two.
Well, Peter, maybe what we can do is we can also have this as being a separate webinar, since you've given us a preview of it, executive preview.
Absolutely.
And then we'll just call it U.S. exports to the world.
Yes.
And give that story if you're wanting to do that.
Yes, and hopefully that'll give us a small time lag to look at June data as well. So I checked this morning; it's not out yet, but it should be soon. And I can add it very easily because I basically built a model. The only other thing that I'll mention is work that I've been doing. I've been doing a little, EIDL is still around, economic injury disaster loans directly from the SBA. PPP program is actually wrapping up tomorrow. Tomorrow is the deadline, Paycheck Protection Program. There is another program out there for access to capital, the Main Street Lending Program. And Quentin, if you want to discuss more about this in the future, this may be right up your alley. Basically, this is coming directly from the Federal Reserve. And the Federal Reserve, I don't have the exact terms in front of me, but I do have all the data. It is essentially buying back from banks participating in this program up to 95% of the loans. So they're only keeping 5% on the books, 5 to 10%. I've seen a few different figures, but 5% is what I've seen written down. And so this is probably the main tool out there for injecting new capital within the economy in the coming months, if necessary. And it really is the interface between the Federal Reserve and the banking system that is going to make the rubber hit the road on this if needed. So, and I'd be happy to work with anyone on an individual basis, or Quentin, if you want to discuss this more on a pipeline basis.
It's Quentin Tarantino.
Awesome.
Otherwise, I've been working a bit on with people out of DC with the Power Africa, Asia Edge, and America Crece initiatives. These are primarily focused on energy, and some of them branch out into infrastructure development in these regions. The main thing that I'm looking for is identifying firms that have capacity to either do partial partner up potentially with other firms to add to their capacity and execute projects in these parts of the world in the future. Again, energy infrastructure, transmission and distribution, solar is a big area, petrochemical is a big area. Geothermal is a big area, but we don't have core competencies here for that. Most of the work is coming out of Japan for that. Transmission, distribution, smart cities, especially in the Asia Edge initiative. Those are areas that are really high on the horizon, and if we can identify the right capacity with firms out there, we can implement some pretty significant projects down the road. Thank you very much, everyone, for your time.
Thank you so much. All right, so since Quentin's name was dropped a number of times, we're going to go to Quentin. But if anyone has a question right now for Peter, put your hand up so I can see it, and then let's ask him the question before we turn it over. So Dominique, you can go ahead and ask Peter your $1 million question.
Can you send the link to us? That's the $1 million question. I do definitely, if you could provide or send that to us in an email, that'd be amazing. And also, when you do have time, if you could put the international trade on there as well. I know you weren't able to get that, but I would really appreciate that insight.
Yeah, absolutely. So I don't have a link for it currently because this is just an Excel file. This is a work in progress. I'll try to finish it early next week. I'll just put my email down. Just send me an email so that I have your so that I have your information. Just make a request, and as soon as I have it out, I will add me on LinkedIn if you don't have me there, because I'll probably post something there, and then I'll be happy to send that to each of you as well. And I can probably even pull the import data. It wouldn't take me that long to do an import side.
Just to give the whole trade.
Exactly.
The whole trade.
Yeah. Yes, I agree that would be valuable, and it wouldn't take me that much to do it because I pretty much have a working model already. So as soon as I have it, I will send it out to you. I'll make sure Chris knows, and as Chris mentioned, if we want to turn this into a portion of a webinar at some point in the future, I think it's important to tell the story because I haven't heard it anywhere. I haven't heard this perspective anywhere. So.
All right, thank you so much, Peter.
Yeah, it's Peter is correct, because the only thing we hear, and if you really think about it, is 35,000-foot public officials talk. We're this, we're that, we're God's gift, we're Godzilla, but we don't get the perspective like what Peter has to give the private sector the real focus. I mean, this new USMCA thing, all I've been hearing are public officials, consul generals, blah, 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 and we're not getting the information that I keep pointing down to Peter because his picture's in the middle. But it's because he has the important information so the companies and the small companies can make decisions.
Okay.
That's it. I'll
Good
keep
point.
my mouth shut.
All right, Quentin.
All right. So thank you, Peter and Jorge, for the shout outs. Peter, as far as any Fed lending programs, maybe that'll be something we talk about a little bit later, just because I'm still kind of working out how that's going to fit in with the bigger picture, as it were. As you kind of alluded to, it's hard to give a firm update on what's happening in the economy or advise either way, because we have one side of the coin where small businesses need more help and import-export's having issues, and the ability for me to go to Target and buy something is being stifled by, masks, and are we open? Do they have enough supplies? What are the prices like? On the other hand, we have the NASDAQ hitting record highs, and the larger companies are doing better. The past stimulus packages that we've had, we were really concerned about where those were going to go. Are people just going to sit on them? Are they going to go out and spend? Are people just going to raise their iPad prices from, $1,000 an iPad to $1,200 an iPad? So, and is it all going to concentrate into one sector? Is it all going to Apple, which I'm not sure it didn't all go to Apple lately. But we're actually seeing saving up, and we're seeing that credit card debt's being paid down. We're also seeing some positive things as far as the mortgage protections and evictions. I was kind of looking back to 2010, right? Which 2008 was the crisis, but 2010 was really when we started seeing a lot of the foreclosures on homes.
Yeah.
So in the first 6 months of 2010, there was over 500,000 foreclosures. In the first 6 months since the pandemic started, we've only seen about 37,000. It's about 7% of what it is. And a lot of that is the forgiveness, the ability to, tack it on at the end. You don't have to pay too much right now, because this isn't a security crisis or a liquidity issue. It's a government mandated stay home, don't go to work. And that's really played hectic with the markets and the banks. And the banks have been preparing for that. They have about $4.5 trillion sitting on the sidelines right now, whether that's to put into the market if they see an opportunity, or to, buy those houses back from, customers, or absorb that cost. These are all signs that we do have a strong financial sector, even though, the world is having social and humanitarian and health crises.
Yep.
That being said, top performers right now have been tech and healthcare, which are no surprises. I think this has been very, very beneficial for many people as far as work from home technology. My own firm, Merrill Lynch, Bank of America, right, which is a very large company, we're very limited on what we could do as far as work from home, work out of the office, what's private, what's personal. In fact, I got yesterday, I got my first work cell phone from the company. So we're really pushing more mobile, having more capabilities of, connecting with our clients. One of the biggest drivers of industry is that face-to-face meeting, right? The business people going to New York or California or Detroit. And now we're moving more where a Zoom meeting is acceptable. I'm seeing, 70, 80, 90-year-old people for the first time ever on WebEx who didn't have a computer a week ago. So I think industry-wise and hiring-wise, it'll be easier for people who can't get to the office every day. The infirm, people who are homebound, who have the mental and maybe physical capacity to sit on a computer and work, but can't actually get to the office. So there's a lot of good technological advances. Healthcare, we've seen a lot of spikes, mostly due to the search for the vaccine. I was informed about 2 weeks ago, my company's going to be home until probably end of January. So, yeah. So,
is your wife still alive? Is your wife still alive?
Yeah, I'm surprised I'm still alive, to be honest. And she's going to be home until they find a vaccine. They told her. She works for iHeartMedia, and they said, you don't need to be in the office, go home and work from home. So as we adapt to this lifestyle, it's been a growth opportunity in our marriage, but we're doing well. So,
Awesome.
Yeah, thank you. So that also plays into real estate, right? So thinking about, our clients or friends that you have, what their real estate looks like, are they going to have 30, we're seeing, people quote as high as 30% of the office can work from home from now on, right? So do we need that real estate space? So that's just a thing we're thinking about. I don't have an answer to that because I also think each person's going to need more space, per square foot per employee, right? Because if I go back to work and my office is half the size and I'm, closer to my neighbor, it may not be what I want to do. As far as an office space, I might work from home more. We're seeing good things in the economy. Hiring back, it's still incredibly high unemployment, but I think we're about 50% back to where we were since this started, which is a good thing. We're furthering e-commerce, even with Amazon and Walmart. At the end of last year, and all the other e-commerce, Old Navy, JCPenney, there was nothing that beat brick and mortar. E-commerce was huge dollar figure wise, but it was still majority brick and mortar, and now we've seen that flipped. So it's hard. That's kind of what we're seeing. Not all stocks are equal. So biggest headwind in the economy now, and if you look at some of your endowments, your pensions, your 401ks that have policies saying they have to have more large cap value and dividend paying stocks in them, those were hit the hardest. I have performance managers or institutional money managers that we use that are up 60% year to date. So that's from January highs. They're up another 60% through all of this. And then I have the traditional, the world has the traditional large cap value, dividend paying stocks, energy, financials, industrials that pay a dividend, which is what a lot of retirees view as very safe, very, low risk. They're always rated the lowest risk of the equities, which are still down 13%, because their policy says you have to get out of investments that aren't paying the dividend. So when we see these large companies saying we don't have cash flow because the president or the Congress says I can't do business in person anymore, where do you get that cash to pay it? So they end up cutting it, or even the threat of cutting it will sometimes make those large funds sell out. So until we get reopened and back in, kind of a positive cash flow for these businesses, I think we're going to have a very slow recovery of, your maybe not your 401ks if you've taken advantage of it yourself and done it, but the larger pensions and, things like GE that we always think about, those are going to be low for a while, and they're not going to participate in the market. So really it's turning into a decision of where you're allocated. I know we talk about international versus domestic business. I still think that, and my team's view is that international does have good upside, but the risk is too high for what you get. It's not that you can't make money or that you shouldn't own some, but risk versus reward, we still think domestic is the way to go.
Talking about stocks?
Yeah.
Oh yes, of course.
Stock. Yeah. So, and it's one of those things where even we make all our own portfolios, my team and I. So even like Merrill Lynch's firm portfolios, they invest a lot in international, and sometimes the reasoning is it's been down for so long, we should have some. It can't be down that long forever, which is true and is not true, right? It may be 10 more years before it comes back to where it's a good risk reward profile. So, just if you look a lot online or at what some of your managers might be doing, or whoever's running your investments, they may have more international, and it's just because they feel like it, or a model, modern portfolio theory said they should diversify into international, and it's been a drag in the portfolios. So I know that's a lot. Anyone have any questions? A lot of times what the market is seeing and what you're seeing working with other businesses and other people, they don't line up one-to-one a lot of the times. But
we have a question from Nadia.
So Quentin, I have a couple of questions for you. So
Yeah.
do you guys dive into how much do you dive into the whole life insurance?
So it depends what we're talking about. So I'm life insurance licensed. My whole team is. So we do life insurance. Most of the time when I talk about investments, we're not discussing life insurance, just because it is good to have. And absolutely, it makes a lot of sense for a lot of people, especially business owners. You know, if something were to happen, you know, death, divorce, disability, that becomes huge. You know, having that umbrella policy becomes a really, really important thing. A lot of times when we talk about life insurance, we get into annuities, which historically are incredibly high cost. So which one are we talking about?
So I'm talking about the regular whole life insurance because you know that's a fixed vehicle, and again protects you against creditors. I'm just curious with everything that's going on because we're moving technically into like a cashless society. In case you guys haven't noticed that, and so there's something going on behind the scenes here, and. I tell you, the last time I've used a dollar note was back in March or February. That was the very last time I pulled out any type of currency, U.S. currency to use or buy anything, which is a long time for me, right? And so for me, I just feel like in the end, in the event that where the world is going, how much should we even investing in certain vehicles like this for business owners, one? And then my other question is that we're seeing a lot of long-term, long-life businesses go out of business, period.
Right.
A lot of restaurants, you know, cannot pivot to the online. They cannot, like in New York, we're seeing that you have an 8,000 square foot restaurant and now they say, well, the insurance is not going to cover it, so you can go curbside. Well, guess what? You know what? Those type of businesses, we're seeing a lot of people closing down their businesses because not everybody could just do curbside after having so much square footage, you know, for their business. So I just want to know, like, especially with your team and portfolio wise, I know it's more of a conservative approach for the insurance, you know, and so it versus variable. And so how much of that is being in, like, you know, how much are you guys really informing or even just investigating if this is a good move to just really protect people's assets for that during this time?
Yeah.
Thank you.
No, that's an excellent question. So, and that kind of reminded me too, one of the things we're seeing a lot of is who's liable if a worker goes back to work and gets corona, right? So that's something that's really impacting businesses, moving to that curbside as well. It depends. That's a case-by-case basis, honestly. So we see a lot of doctors who, you know, go into annuities or other protected investments, you know, such as insurances, because they're creditor protected, you know, so they can't get sued for it, along with business owners. It really depends on the policies that you currently have or are looking at. Merrill Lynch doesn't make any of its own policies, so we work with other companies.
On all this,
and we're very stringent.
Hey, how are you?
I'm sorry? No. Right, so we're very selective and stringent on what we do and do not accept, because back in the 80s, when a lot of the, and early 90s, a lot of the insurance companies were going out of business. And so people who had, you know, if you have a policy through Mass Mutual, right, or Pacific Life, that's the insurer, and then the account would be with us. So we are kind of just the middleman. So we don't do any of it, but we actually honored all of those contracts that went under. So we made all our clients whole. So
to expand
you know,
on that, Nadia, sorry, Quinn, I don't mean to cut you off, but
no,
I want to make it clear that when it comes to life insurance and the creditor protection aspect that people are telling you about, that is a state-by-state case basis, okay? In Texas, it is creditor protected. If you get sued and all that stuff, and your annuity as well. You go to California, that may not be the same case, okay? So where you sign your policy and what state that is dependent on whether or not it's creditor protected. And also if they say that they can't come after you in divorce, well, the lawyer will come in and negotiate that in a more creative way where you will have to leverage your life insurance. So I just want to make that clear, because a lot of people think that when you purchase these annuities, life insurance policies, that it's creditor protected, but depending on which state you sign that on, it may or may not be creditor protected. Okay.
Well, I'm aware, and so I was a life insurance agent for a few years, and so I'm completely aware about how it works. So, but the good thing about it, I live in Texas.
Right. So you definitely know a lot about the way that works, but I will tell you, my
question is more in line, one, where we're in Texas, and how is, especially with the pandemic, I really want to know, like, in terms of difference, in terms of how we're really restructuring the things that we do, even in terms of financial vehicles, and small businesses. So yes, I'm very aware. My husband was also a financial advisor, in New York with me for a number of years as well. So we're familiar with that. I'm just curious because with all these business closing down and people are going to a more cashless based society, all these different things, what are some of the new trends that you're seeing?
So maybe what we can do, because again, this is a good conversation, but Quentin, I don't know, and Dominique, maybe this is something where we can have a broader presentation that can address the Texas specifics. So I think it's a good topic, but I am going to move along because I have Lily that is with Dream Voice, and she has a meeting, and I wanted to make sure I heard her voice today. So Lily, please unmute yourself. Thank you, Quentin.
Oh, absolutely.
Thank you, Quentin.
Hello,
My
can
pleasure.
you hear me? Okay.
Yes.
Yes, so we're still waiting on things to, be more clear. We're probably looking at Dream Voice having Dream Week for 2 weeks, because we were thinking about having it just 1 week to make it shorter. But I think if we open it for more virtual events, then we could have the 2 week stay the same. We haven't decided yet, to be honest. So we're not publishing any, like, what are the dates or anything yet. But we're working with a lot of partners and some new partners as well who are still interested in being part of Dream Week.
The theme?
Sorry?
The theme for 2021?
The theme is We the People.
Okay.
And the dates we have for now is January the 8th to the 24th. And I think that's it for Dream Week.
So how do you envision the international population of San Antonio participating? I mean, last year I saw you did a lot of different things with some of the different ethnic groups and foreign groups that were here. So can you tell us more about how do you intend to bring the world to San Antonio?
First of all, for Dream Week itself, we try. So I just joined last year, so I didn't have the chance to be working with Dream Week for the past years. But I'm trying to reach out to all organizations that represent minorities in the community, because I want people to see that this is what we do in San Antonio. So this is the cultures we have. And I want also San Antonio to know its own people, because I'm not sure that any of you have been to even one Arabic event before or a Middle Eastern thing. So it's a kind of like, we want to reintroduce the city to itself, but also offer this space where people can have a voice and say, hey, you know what, San Antonio, it has a Middle Eastern business and it's growing, although a few just closed and someone got a fire in the restaurants and stuff like that, but we still there's still more openings, and the people who are already in the business, they're trying to keep it surviving for now. But our plan is that we want to make it attractive for more Middle Easterns, people who are rich and having the money, so they can pick San Antonio as a destination where they can have their mansion, their big house, and their whatever they want to do, not California or New York or something like that. So that's just we're starting on this. But I talked to you Christopher before about that we had an idea about bringing people to visit San Antonio and have them all together for a weekend, talk about issues and make them see the beautiful parts and faces of the city as well. It's been on hold because of COVID, but I think we're gonna work on planning that for maybe next year, so you never know. But we're also trying with the MENA to help the business women. I mean, many of them have small businesses, and few I know they just opened the business just before COVID, and it's been a struggle for some time. And even one of the ladies, she owns the Jerusalem, she had issues with her accountant who applied for the PPP, and she got just like maybe like $400 or something like that. I don't know how.
The owners of Jerusalem Grill? Jerusalem Grill?
So Jerusalem Grill, they went bankruptcy. So one of their restaurants went bankruptcy. So he sold it to that lady, my friend, and now she is the owner of the Jerusalem, but she called it Jerusalem Restaurant, not the Jerusalem Grill, just to make a distinction, but it's still, yeah. So she bought it in January, and then COVID-19 happened. So it's been a struggle, but we're trying to, in the coming months, we're working on like few things that we can do at the restaurants and how we can bring some Middle Eastern interest in that area. So that's something. We're also, I need to talk to you, Christopher, but not probably now, but we can discuss a few other things that I'm thinking about.
Okay.
And I have to run for a meeting, so I'm so sorry, but
well, thank you
all. And yeah, if you send any information, just share it with me. I'll be very grateful.
Okay, we the people.
We the people. Yeah,
Bye-bye.
please. And all of you are welcome to be part of Dream Week, to represent your organization or the work you do. And the events are different forms, so it doesn't have to be a cultural event. It can be business, a panel discussion. It can be just an introduction about what you do in the community.
What's the website? What's the website, Lily?
It's dreamvoice.org or dreamweek.org. It's the same. So
Okay.
Thank you so much.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Lily.
We will next go to Lawana.
La Juana, no La Juana.
LJ.
LJ.
Hello, hello, hello.
Hello, hello.
Okay, I am actually doing some late day trading. I got into some pretty interesting biotech firms that have been popping today. So I'm actually just chatting it up with my trading group. We're having a good old time this wild card Friday, but all is going well here. I'm just happy to see everyone, and I know it's been a very difficult time. San Antonio lost a hero this week, several heroes, I'm sure, but one that I know of was Mr. Carlos Martinez. He was the president and the CEO at the American GI Forum National Veterans Outreach Program for 30 plus years. And he was one of those bosses that I had that was just extraordinary. He was an extraordinary person to me. I've always, ever since I can remember when I worked somewhere, it was always a lot of tension between myself and my bosses. There was always that, stay in your lane, don't ask questions, you're too ambitious, you're too aggressive, you're too much like a guy. I used to get a lot of that type of feedback. And working with Mr. Martinez, when I went to interview for my position, I was working as the Management Information Systems Evaluator there, which was code for the person who would do all the database architecture and all the grant writing. So it was a very odd position. I'd never been in a job like that before, but I loved it. It was extremely challenging. And when I found out, Mr. Martinez sat me down. He said, "Do you know who I gave you the job over a person that you're working with right now, and you guys love each other, but you have no idea." And he told me, and it was my favorite coworker, Figueroa. And Figueroa was this, like, you know, he's a colonel. You know, he's this decorated sort of, like, you know, this veteran. He's amazing. He's brilliant. He's got a background in MIS. And I was just kind of looking at Mr. Martinez. I was like, why the hell would you choose me over, you know, over Figueroa? He was amazing. And he was like, because you are amazing too. And I saw your potential. And look at where you are now. You know what I mean? Like, he was that guy. And man, losing him was,
yeah.
Wow. It was very sad because he had a heart attack. And the heart attack is what took him out. But 4 weeks before that, his wife passed away, and I didn't know that either. So I just felt so bad because, you know, you kind of, all this is happening, you just get really focused on your own projects and what you got going on in your life, and you really forget that there are people literally dying around you. You know what I mean? Like, he was I think this year I've lost like 6 or 7 people to date, and I just didn't have the chance. I didn't have the opportunity to get back in front of them before it was, you know, too late. So it's just like, you know, it just reminds you how precious life is and how valuable time is that we spend with one another. And I'm getting to a point right now where I'm like, okay, I'm not taking any of this for granted. You know, Mr. Herring was like, yo, we got the meeting today. I said, okay, I'm gonna jump on. You know, I'm gonna make the time for these things, for people that I care about, and for people that I know are out here doing the great work. You know what I mean? Like, there's so many of us that I think we just need to be really intentional about, like, wrapping arms around each other and just, like, rocking with each other, because it's a hard time, and it's going to be a hard time. I don't know who was saying it earlier, but I think it was Peter maybe, but it's going to be hard for a while. You know what I mean? Like, it's going to be a tough life for a minute. So it's like, we just have to really wrap around each other, because, like, we are not, none of us is guaranteed tomorrow. And I would just be, I'm already devastated right now. Losing anybody else, I'm going to be, I don't even know. Right. So yeah, I've been doing a lot of trading. I've got government contracts that thank God for my business. We've been okay because it's all criminal justice, and, you know, folks are still being stupid and getting locked up. So I'm okay. You know, my contracts are actually getting extended because of that. So, you know, thank God, right? Yeah. Another blessing. But I've been feeling incredibly blessed, and I've just been able to really take this time to refocus, recenter the team, the media team. For me, Voyage Dallas is who's my PR. They've been killing the game. They've been really, you know, assisting with picking me up on stuff. I've got the Market X. I just hired this brother. And I actually know him since high school, and he's got this, like, awesome, you know, he's a web designer, web engineer, and he's just got this awesome sort of perspective on web anything. And I hired him, so I'm paying him to, you know, kind of go and take care of the cybersecurity and all that for my website. And it's just been amazing to be in the position to support other businesses, but also be looking at myself and saying, okay, this is the example, this is the bar that I got to set, and this is where we're functioning. We're only doing better than this, right? Like, even during these crazy times, it's like, this is it. We're not slipping. We're going to stay here, or we're going to exceed. So yeah, it's been crazy, but I appreciate these types of opportunities to just, like, get in front of other, you know, brilliant business owners like yourselves, and you know, let you know that I'm here, and I appreciate you, and I thank you for creating these opportunities for us to just pour into each other and give each other great information, so that we're, you know, keeping our heads out the clouds and remembering that we are here to take care of our families, take care of our communities.
Thank you, LJ. Appreciate you so much. And, you know, just to say before I transition to Dominique, I wanted to say that, I had on my heart, because I've seen a number of people who have been very important to me that have passed through this COVID-19. And the Global Chamber founder, Doug Brunke, approved for me to organize a global day of prayer to end our coronavirus. And we're going to look at having a date that's going to be closer to where, well, right now it looks like about 2 billion people, 2 billion cases of coronavirus, and we're getting near to the 1 million mark of actual deaths. And so with that being said, we'll have an event that will have all faiths. It will include all faiths, and we'll have a day of prayer to help our business community and to help our family and friends who are part of it. So more to be announced on that. I'm going to now transition to Dominique, and I'm saying that because we are done at 1:30, so I want to make sure I get the voices in. So hold whatever comments you have, so we can at least fit in Dominique, Nadia, and Romlet.
Hey guys, how are you doing? It's Friday. Everybody's excited. Week's over, or does Friday feel like Monday these days?
All the same.
Yeah, it's starting to bleed into it, right? I'm sure some of you guys are aware, we had a women's forum this past Wednesday, and it was the first time I think we've had this, right, Chris, in our San Antonio chamber. So it's quite interesting because it was our first go around, and the great thing about that is we had a great response. We asked a lot of women. We asked 10 women, and of the 10, 9 responded. So that was, that was quite heartwarming to see that, they're recognizing the Global Chamber as a platform for their voice. So the premise of this was, of course, Global Chamber, we're business owners, right? We support each other, the international commerce and all of that. But as, a business owner the past 6 months, obviously we've seen revenues go down. We could talk about how profit margins, we didn't meet it, and all these goals that we had, and how all these negative things that we could talk about our business. But what I found was not being asked at all to business owners is, how are you doing? Right? We could talk about how the numbers look, but nobody's really asking how we're doing as people, how we're doing mentally and emotionally. And that really is what drives our business, right? Our passion for it. So, just to take a mental step back and from, what Peter was talking about, right? Peter, in your portion today was about just, let's just, talk about how the mental aspect of things really is difficult, right? So, if you thought the woman was already having a hard time juggling business and home life, it was already difficult. Coming into coronavirus. Can everybody hear me okay? I feel like I'm okay. So it was just a really simple forum. It was a group of women talking about their experiences and what they have been able to, what's worked for them for their specific industry during the whole coronavirus system. So I'm going to share my screen right now. Let's see here. Can everybody see that? Okay. All right. So we had 9 women on our panel, on our panelists. And as you can see, some of these women, Lily is, a member of our chamber as well. So I know she's not on here, but I want to thank her for lending her voice. What we did was we went around and we talked about some of the best practices, some of the advice that they could give to each other, to us really as women business owners. What are some things that would help, because coronavirus is going to be here. It's not going to leave anytime soon. So we do plan on doing another one of these events next month. and hopefully, our women members in our membership can step up and be part of that voice. But we'd also like to get some women internationally to contribute, because there is a cultural difference in how we approach business. Okay, and so I would like to get that. I would like to get that perspective from maybe a woman in I don't know, Vietnam, or a woman in Mexico, right, George? Like one of the women business owners, so we can pull that in and get their perspective and see what they've been going through. But hopefully we could do this on a monthly basis. And we'd like to do some one-on-ones as well, because we were strapped for time. Like had 5 minutes and we just had to keep going. And there were just so many great stories out there. But this is really to help each other out and have kind of a culture of mentorship is kind of where I see this going.
Dominique, and the participants really enjoyed their opportunity to give their voice. Some of the presentations, were on the scale of excellent to superb. And I know that for Doug Brunke, who was a part of it, Jorge Canavati was a part of it. Some of the men, we became a part of listening and really understanding how to balance both the home and the business. And so out of that, out of your brainchild, we're going to now bring also the men to the table, and we'll have a men's panel that will do the same thing. And I found that a lot of the women who were your guests wanted to know what was the man doing in the home. That was their most, yeah, don't laugh. Yeah. I see all the laughing. Yeah, don't duck. But that was what was brought up. So we're going to focus on some of these guys like Quentin, so we can hear how he juggles, or Peter. But we're going to go there, right, Jorge? We're going to go there because we have to raise the bar. So do you have anything else to add, Dominique? Or
No, that was it. And that I'd like to get the women today to see if they have some time next week. We haven't pinpointed a date yet. But in the event, I'll send out an email and ask you guys to hopefully join next month's forum.
Okay, thank you so much.
That's it for me.
All right, Ramlet.
She fell asleep.
So you have to unmute yourself, Ramlet.
Oh, there she is.
Okay, everyone. Hello. Good morning. I think it's good afternoon now. So, as we all know that we are facing an economic nosedive in the past couple of months. That's no deny to that. And with the effect in our community, personally, in business, it hurts. It hurts everyone. No matter how big or small your business is or whatever you're doing. And I just want to also point out to, especially to Mr. Christopher Herring, that with the Global Chamber of San Antonio, how can we utilize our network? We have a network that we can collaborate. All right, help each other. Because to my experience, to my end in my business, quite honestly, if I had not transcend into something else with my business, my magazine is dead right now. Just to be honest with you, it's so dead. So I went to video publishing now, even filming. I have movie projects that were going on. Because a lot of people nowadays, why I did that, a lot of people nowadays is paying more attention on computer, laptop, desktop, doing this. And when they watch ads, they don't watch ads through prints anymore. Even digital, they're not very sort of inviting or, But anyway, to make that short, I have to transcend into video publishing because people are paying more attention in the visual sort of kind of way of commercial sort of stuff. And now, with the San Antonio Economic Development Foundation that Mr. Christopher Herring is working on, which now I'm part of the team with the Fair Contracting Coalition, the request for the 2 board member seats for African American and Asian American board member seats, to me now is vital and crucial than ever. This has been going on for like more than a decade now, but with more knowledge now about how the economy works and how the operation works and all that. I've done my little research, and I need Mr. Christopher Herring to educate me more in that aspect. But I can see the importance of it, to have that voice in there, to just even have the opportunity to access to information, which I learned from Mr. Christopher Herring, as well as the opportunity to at least compete for a contract. And so I just, you know, with this Global Chamber of San Antonio, it's a very big and broad network. And I think it's great that we are doing this every month, like this, the monthly meeting. But I want to see more of our branch outside of San Antonio or Texas. How can we network with them and exchange? Either could be just information, because knowledge is still power, regardless if there's still money exchange at that point, but it's potential. There's the potential is always there. And then I would really ask Christopher Herring right now I want to have another one-on-one meeting with you, you know, other than the one that we did, because we did with Mr. T.C. Calvert. He's an awesome guy. I like him. To strategize more about this board member seats that we are requesting, and also help the Global Chamber of San Antonio, especially the business owners, regardless male or female business owners, small or big, on how we can utilize our network to be able to make it. Okay?
All right.
That's all I can say.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So what I'll also say that Global Chamber of San Antonio has also been working with the Fair Contracting Coalition, and this coalition has asked the city of San Antonio, in particular the city manager, to end what we would determine to be an alienation of certain types of chambers on the San Antonio Economic Development Foundation. Yep. And that foundation has, as you all know, is very important to the strategic footprint of how we position at San Antonio. We go out into the international communities, we hit the ground here in the United States, and we bring executive leaders to various places to bring in large companies that we think that would really be valuable within our marketplace. Over 11 years now, we've been asking, because there are 3 chambers that are on the EDF, the San Antonio Chamber, the North Chamber, and the Hispanic Chamber. And we simply asked the question over the last 11 years, why can't the Alamo Asian American Chamber of Commerce and the Alamo City Black Chamber of Commerce be given 2 board seats as the other chambers? What we found is not only do we have a disparity in terms of treatment, because this past budget year, over $800,000 of taxpayer dollars was used to give to the EDF from the city. And so they're using our money to keep us from away from the opportunities to talk about, you know, what would be good for all sides of the community, the east side, west side, north side, and south side. And so when you alienate and you leave people away from the decision making, of course, there's going to be the economic segregation that we have. There's going to be the generational poverty, and the cycle will continue and continue. So we just simply wanted to make a stronger appeal for the manager to, since he is a voting member on the board and he has a say, to do his responsibility as our city manager to make it open for all. And that's one of the things, you know, we talk about. I've provided an invitation to Mayor Nirenberg to speak at our global chamber, and I'm still waiting for his response. But other chambers, when they ask, they do get the response that he'll speak. So again, it's just not along the lines of the Alamo Asian and the Alamo City Black chambers. It's even our global chamber, being relatively new, we still have some way to be accepted and being in the information loop. So I'm going to transition. I think Jorge had a quick comment, and then we're going to go to Nadia to close us out.
Yeah, no, quickly, not only that, I mean, of course, what you're saying all is very important, but there needs to be a balance on that board. Getting back to my area of expertise and Peter's area of expertise, there needs to be a balance on that board. It's very scary sometimes what I hear coming out of some of the board members. You know, the chairman, the co-chair wrote an opinion piece this morning in the Express News, which was more or less, you know, and I have the tendency of always countering what they say in a positive light, but there needs to be a balance because, you know, they talk about international trade, this, and that, but at the end of the day, they don't have the expertise on that board, you know, for many reasons. We'll keep it at that. We'll go on it later.
Okay, thank you so much, Chairman Jorge Canavati. All right.
I am at your feet.
Moving down to, and I also want to say this, because LJ said it. Look, I enjoy seeing y'all. I love you guys, and that's real. So if we get caught off, know that I sometimes will text you. I'll laugh with you. This is why we're doing it this way, to be safe. But at the same time, I still want you guys to know that I care about you and your families, and so always let me know if there's anything I can do. It's a challenge, but I do love you. Nadia.
Hi, everybody. My name again is Nadia Noel Anglade, and I am the business owner for the Networking Embassy, which started last year. Business was going really great. What I started off doing with the Networking Embassy was to really connect people, referring them directly to the people they wanted to do business with. But very soon I started doing that. My business took a turn into public speaking. People just wanted me to come and give speaking engagements. So it converted into that very quickly. However, as the year progressed last year, I ended off the year with a TEDx speaking engagement, and I landed, an engagement with an Women's International Organization. As soon as COVID hit, I was literally paid half of the money to come and speak for this organization, and then it stopped. And so around that time, through networking, I was hired. So while I have my business, I'm the senior operations manager for a large global business process outsourcing company. And so my client is General Motors. It's a very challenging account. I manage 2 business units, which totals up to 11 business lines for GM. And as you know, they are the largest automakers pretty much in the world. It's affected everybody. So on one hand, I have my personal business, but not everybody wants to do the virtual engagement. They're waiting for later on this year where things are slacking off, or the mandate isn't as strong to have the social distancing, conferences. But on the other side, in terms of my full-time job, we're seeing this is the first time this operation has pivoted to going from home. It's never been the talk of even going virtual. And so my role is really to keep as many people employed as we possibly can, because we basically took an on-site operation and moved it to the virtual world. And so my 3 areas of focus there is performance management, leadership development, employee engagement, with the umbrella being strategy for the company. And it's going really, really well, but very, very challenging, extremely long days. There's a lot of mental exhaustion, not just from me, but just, from all our employees. And it's been a very challenging time. Very similar to what all of you all said, especially Quinton earlier on. The silver lining here is that, I am one of those people who just, I'm capitalizing on the pandemic and paying down my debt like crazy. And I'm realizing that we actually spend unnecessarily, because I'm in fuzzy slippers all day, and I don't really have to wear all these suits and stuff that I would normally wear, and I'm I guess very similar to what LJ said, I'm seeing a totally different perspective on life. So it's given me a time to really prioritize what's important and what's not. But again, on one side, again, I'm in a senior role for this automaker, and on the other side, I'm a business owner. So I am just trying to find ways to protect myself over the next 6 to 9 months, because you're right, this is going to last until end of year, going into next year, possibly even down to mid next year. We don't know, right? And so we just have to do whatever it is we can in order to protect ourselves as business owners. But that's pretty much what I do in a nutshell.
That's very cool.
All right, thank you so much. So I hope everyone's receiving all your newsletters and your information from Global Chamber. Every day you can go to globalchamber.org and you can look at the full calendar of Global Chamber webinars, globinars, events that are happening all over the world. And because you're members, you can just go in and get your free ticket, go into these events. When I RSVP, it's funny, I get on my phone, every event that pops up wakes me up sometime. Some of these are like in different time zones across the world. And so, it passes great time. I learn a lot. I'm learning a lot. So I encourage you to keep learning. I'm going to turn it over to Jorge, who has probably 2 minutes to close this out. But just keep learning and keep reading your emails. And thank you for attending today.
Chris, quickly, first of all, thank you very much for your leadership, as always. Do we have a chamber in Beirut, in Lebanon?
I don't know, but we can certainly check the.
Yeah, I just want to find out if we do, if they're safe.
Okay.
And I forgot to discuss that in my time, but we should do that later. It's back to trade and port management. We'll talk that some other time, but I want to thank you and thank everybody. And I'm going to send out a little note with your blessing, Chris, to see the other board members to get their butts on these meetings, because right now it's very, very important.
Okay, very good.
We can't be like this. We have to have them participating, especially now. Thank you, everybody. Have a good weekend.
Okay. See ya.
Bye, everyone.